appropriate this morning that we sang that little chorus right in the middle of the song. What a wonderful name it is, that Jesus breaks every chain. And he does. For a lot of us, that's chains that are very, very evident in our lives, things that we're trying to leave behind or we've left behind. And you know that it was God's grace that intervened and broke those chains in your life. For some of us, we don't even really realize till maybe even later on in life, some of those things that are in our lives that try to hinder us and keep us back from living the life that God intends us to live. That's kind of been the story a little bit for mine and Melissa's life. The way I grew up, I've talked about my family quite a bit, and I've got a great family. Don't mishear anything that I say to you today. But I've talked a lot about my dad being a musician and living on the road. And on Father's Day, of course, you think about your dad quite a bit, even though he's been gone 15 years now. It seems it's about 15 years, yeah, and that he's been gone. And you think about that, and living on the road, it's really strange for a musician. There are a lot of addictions that come with that. There are a lot of things that happen in a musician's life in front of crowds performing, and then coming home and not being in front of the crowd and having to raise a family when you're not there 200 days of the year. And so we lived a very strained relationship, me and my father, until the end of his life. And then at the end of his life, Dad, we had a sweet time together, very, very sweet. And so I honor him. I love him. I'm not singing you a sob story this morning, but I can remember laying in my bed several nights, and we lived in an old A-frame white house out in the middle of nowhere. We had one of those porch swings that made a lot of noise, creaked a lot. It was made out of wood. And my dad would come home from the road, and he would be really messed up. And he would lay out in that porch swing because Mom wouldn't let him in the house. And he would say a lot of things about us and about my mom and about our family. And I can remember that. I tell you what I remember most out of it. I remember the creak of that porch swing. I can hear it even today. And just listening to that garbage as he was out there and then going months on end sometimes without our family really even talking to each other. Melissa, her parents divorced in a very bitter divorce about the age of 16. I can remember her calling me. We had just started dating. She called me from Texas. She had gone back. She was having to testify at her parents' divorce. And it was ugly. And she has a couple of other siblings, 3 other siblings. And they weren't talking with Dad. Dad was ostracized. There was a lot of infighting and bitterness in the family. So here we are, 2 believers, and I'm just here to tell you today, Jesus breaks every chain. On a Father's Day like today, I want to talk to you just a little bit about family and how Jesus can break cycles in your family and how Jesus can bring newness to your family, even today. I don't care where you're at in the process. I know it may even be really, really bad today as you're gathered in this place, but he is so faithful. God's grace works miracles. It works miracles in our lives. And so if you would, I'd like for you to open up to Psalm 78. On this Father's Day, we're going to talk a little bit about family. I'm going to use an acronym. No, an acrostic. One of those ACR words. I'm going to use family, and we're going to do FAM this morning, F-A-M. If we don't get to, I don't know where the Lord's going to lead next week. We may do I-L-Y. I'm not sure. I just don't know. So you're going to have to hang on with the Holy Spirit. As I think about, though, God's work in our lives, and we are nowhere near perfect. We are messed up people. I've told you a little bit about our backgrounds. It takes years and years and years for God's grace to work through that. But today, Sitting at a church outside of Conway is a 24-year-old son of ours who loves the Lord, who goes to church and works in his youth group and serves at the church. He loves Jesus. I've got a 21-year-old son. We have a 21-year-old son who loves the Lord and loves the church. Grew up in ministry, and they love the church. They go on their own. They do it on their own. We got tickled this last week. He went and bought himself his own Bible. I have about 20 sitting in my office that I could give him that are brand new. But he wanted to buy his own Bible, and his mama was going through it this week. And on that front page, you know, where it says presented to for those special kind of present, he wrote his name. He presented it to himself. I don't know if he had like a special ceremony. Not sure what all happened there, but his name is in the Bible. We just found that so funny. And then we have a daughter who just got back from a children's church camp, serving with a church that she barely knows. She leads a girls' Bible study on Sunday nights. She goes to church on her own, and she loves Jesus. And by the way, you all were very, very instrumental in that process as they were here, part of this church. I'm just telling you, Jesus breaks chains. He performs miracles. And we're broken, crazy people. If you really looked at our lives and who we are, it kind of reminds me of the 14-year-old boy that was sitting out by himself. The preacher found him. He came up to him and he said, "Son, where are your parents?" And he said, "Well, my dad's in jail." "Well, where's your mom?" "Well, she ran off." "You have any other family?" "Yeah, I've got a sister." "Where's she?" "She's in jail too." "Anybody else that I can get for you?" I mean, this kid's out by himself. And the little boy says, "Yeah, I've got a brother." "Well, where's he?" "Harvard." "Harvard? Wow, really? That's great. What's he studying?" "Nothing. They're studying him." That's kind of how we feel. Like we ought to be studied because of some of where we've come from. So write down this question this morning. How do we leave a legacy of faith? How do we leave a legacy of faith? Psalm 78, verses 2 through 4. I will declare wise sayings. I will speak mysteries from the past, things we have heard and known that our ancestors have passed down to us. We will not hide them from our children. We will tell a future generation the praiseworthy acts of the Lord, his might, the wondrous works he has performed. I'm guessing that if you're here today, you really do want to pass down something bigger to your family. You really do want to have an impact. You have come in contact with the God of all creation, and you want the faith to be passed down to your family. And so with that in mind, how do you leave that legacy? Write down this word, F, faithfulness. Faithfulness. Become a picture of faithfulness. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit to dads in the room, but I'm also talking to moms, and I'm talking to single parents, and I'm talking to grandparents, and I'm talking to Sunday school teachers, and I'm talking to spiritual moms and dads. Become a picture of faithfulness if you want to pass down the legacy of faith. Did you see it in Psalm 78? That's exactly what they did. They were faithful to the Lord their God as best they could be because God was faithful to them. It reminds me of the verse found in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 12. A strand of 3 cords is not easily broken. And we hear that verse a lot of times at wedding ceremonies, but it's all about this picture of faithfulness, this interweaving of lives centered around that strand of Jesus that causes us to become faithful. Here's how this works, families. We become faithful to Jesus because God is so faithful to us. We become faithful to our spouses, and we become faithful to our families, the kids around us. And all of a sudden, that strand is woven together, and we become stronger in our faith and stronger in our priorities. As a matter of fact, that's what faithfulness is all about. Faithfulness is all about priorities because we have so much in our lives that is digging at our time, screaming for our attention. You open up the mailbox and there are things that are screaming for your attention. You get phone calls screaming for your attention. There's all of these distractions, but at the end of the day, we've got to find out what our priorities are. And when we find that it all centers around Jesus, we focus in first on our spouses and our kids and those loved ones around us. That is when we begin to become a picture of faithfulness. Your family will follow what you're faithful to. Your family will follow what you're faithful to. Our families have a lot going on in our lives. We've got sports and activities, we've got jobs, and we've got all sorts of time consumers in our midst. We've got media and entertainment. We've got all sorts of stuff, right, that fills up the hours of our day. Listen, that picture that you're drawing and painting in front of your kids, that's what they're going to become faithful to. Faithfulness is all about priorities. So, in order for us to pass down the faith to our kids, we have to become this picture of faithfulness to the Lord our God. 82%. I want you to remember that stat. 82% of children raised by parents, listen, who talk about faith at home, who attach great importance to their beliefs, who are active in their congregations, will have children who serve the Lord and serve the church when they grow older. 82%. That's pretty good. Now listen to the contrary stat. 1%. 1% of teens, 15 to 17, raised by parents in the church. These are Christian teens, so-called Christian teens, whose parents attached little importance to religion, were highly religious in their late 20s. They left because there was some sort of facade that was going on. They left. They didn't hear it at home. They didn't talk about it at home. It was just a Sunday morning thing, and 1% of them will remain faithful moving forward. So our kids need a picture of faithfulness. You all know that Melissa and I, we run a little bit. We've walked a lot. We started walking early on in our marriage. We've calculated it. We've gone back and we've calculated. We're up to about 13,000 miles walking. So now we're like, okay, that's about halfway, we hope, halfway through our lives, marriage, whatever. If she stays with me, we'll see. Can we get to 25,000 miles? I mean, that's all the way around the world, 25,000. So now we have this goal. We're going to keep on walking, running, whatever. And really, it's not just about health, and it's not just about decompression, and it's not just about the time for us to have together. It's a picture of faithfulness for our kids. We want our kids to see us together. In order for our kids to learn what faithfulness looks like, we've got to come up with ways to picture it for them. They learn by example. So what are you creating in your home that shows them faithfulness? Not only the faithfulness between you and your spouse, but your faithfulness to God, and for sure, God's faithfulness to you. They need that picture. Is your job bigger than your family? May need to change. Are your sports, activities, hobbies, whatever, bigger than your family and your faithfulness to God? May need to change. But notice I said something here. Become a picture of faithfulness, because I don't know of anyone that has this down. I know a lot of very faithful people, a bunch of great mentors, but I don't know of anybody who gets this dead right. Truth is, many of us have messed this up. Truth is that many of us sit here today broken in faithfulness. We have just messed it all up, and we wonder if there's really even any hope. The preacher gets up on Sunday mornings and starts talking about becoming a picture of faithfulness for our kids, and you're sitting there today and you're going, man, I've got brokenness all around me. That's why I said become a picture of faithfulness, because God's grace is the game changer. It changes everything, no matter who you are or where you're at. That's what's awesome about grace. We are unfaithful. It's in our very innards. to be unfaithful. It's our nature to be That's why the scriptures over and over talk about idolatry and spiritual adultery. My goodness, it's why the book of Hosea was written. The prophet and his wife who was unfaithful to him, who was an adulterer, and him pursuing, showing us the picture of a God who is so faithful to us. He pursues us in the midst of our brokenness. That's the grace that we're talking about this morning. You can have a brand new day even today. His mercies are new every morning. You can become a picture of faithfulness in your life even now. That's what's awesome about grace. Go for it. It's what the Lord wants for you and your family. A, write this one down. A, the word is action. Mission action. F is faithfulness. A is mission action. We need something that unites our family, dads. We need something that draws us together in devotion, something that can make us live in harmony. When your family has mission at its very core, it brings clarity to why your family even exists. Like I said, there's so much that draws at our families today. We need something that will cut through all the noise, and it's the mission that God has given us. Again, some find it in sports and activities. That's why it seems like their family exists. Some find it in beauty and position. Some find it in pursuing money or things. That seems to be why the family even exists. But you and I know that there's a mission that is much greater. It's a mission that's much bigger. I think about Jesus' family. Now, I've told you all a little bit about this before, but I can't help but bring it up again. In Acts chapter 1, the resurrection has happened. The ascension has happened. And all this little small group of believers that are left, they're left in the upper room. Remember this? Wondering what to do next. And it should have been a very dysfunctional small group at this point. You want to talk about broken people. Look who's in this room. Peter, who ran off in the midst of the crucifixion. Thomas, who said, I'm not even going to believe until I see the nail prints in his hands. But also in the room is Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his half-brothers. His half-brothers are in the room. Remember them? They didn't even believe him for the first couple of years of his ministry. That was just big brother Jesus, right? Now they're all gathered in the room together. And you know what they should have been doing? What a lot of our families do when we get together. Pointing fingers, criticizing, making fun. You should have been there. You didn't even believe in him. Who are you to think that you're a leader of this group when you ran off? That should have been the conversation going on. You know what it says in Acts 1:14? They continued together with one accord in prayer and supplication. They continued together in one accord, one heartbeat, one mission. There was unity in the room because there was a vision in the room. There was a vision because they had a mission. They were going to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. What's the mission of your family? You ever thought about that? Why does your family even exist? Apply this to all of those activities and those jobs and everything else. This is when our kids begin to catch on that our faith is real, when they're invited into the mission of Jesus. When we were here, Ethan was on a little ball team, a team that we love very, very much. We had a good time. Y'all even helped us go on a little trip to a World Series to watch him play ball. But I'm going to let you in on something. That ball team was not about baseball for us. It was all about getting in on a bunch of families that we didn't know in this community and loving them with the love of Jesus. We talked about it in our car, going to practices, things of that nature. Why are we doing this? Because we love Jesus and we want people to see Jesus. We want them to know the Lord. That is transforming for a family when you begin to have those conversations. How can we take the mission to this job? How can we take the mission to this activity? How can we take the mission into this hobby? Why are we together as a family? We serve the Lord together. He's brought us together. He's given us unity. He's given us one accord. Here's the big mission for life that Jesus gave us. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's very, very simple, family. Love God, love people. When we can make that the rally cry for our families, we're beginning to pass down the faith. We're making the faith bigger than anything else that's going on in our lives. Make mission action part of your family. What is the church's mission statement? Uh-oh. What is your church's mission statement? I looked it up. I got online. It says this: your church's mission statement is making disciples of Christ and equipping them for the lifelong journey of reaching the nations for the glory of King Jesus. This is your rally cry. This is why you got together this morning. Your mission statement, trying to sum up a lot of things into one brief statement. Making the disciples of Christ, equipping them for the lifelong journey of reaching the nations for the glory of King Jesus. Have you crafted a mission statement for your family? Just something that sums up why you're together and why you exist. Maybe use your church's mission statement as sort of a guide for what you would say. But your kids need to hear something about why you do the things that you do according to the gospel that Jesus has given us. That's when we begin to pass down the faith, moms and dads. M, moments. F, faithfulness. A, mission action. M, moments that need to be remembered. Moments that need to be remembered. Here's what several verses in the Old Testament have to say about remembering the moments. Remember all the commandments of the Lord. Numbers 15:39. Remember the Lord your God, Deuteronomy 8:18. Remember what you used to be, Deuteronomy 15:15. We all know in here that family is made up of moments, special moments. Our family constantly talks about memories and moments that we have made. Now, you all do this too, right? You tell stories on each other. Some you wish would not be told. Those kinds of, because you're family, that's what you do. My kids know exactly how Melissa and I met. We've told that story 100 times. They can tell the story. They know about our love for one another at first, and then how she broke up with me. And I think that was me, wasn't it? Yeah, I broke up with you. Yeah, I'm bringing that up again, and I shouldn't be. I broke up with her a little bit along the way, and 2 years ago, our kids were in the attic, and they found a box of letters during that time. That's dumb. I wish I hadn't written a letter back then. They found a letter that had this phrase. It was during the breakup. I was reaching back out to her, and I used this phrase. Jeff Garrison, you're going to love this. I'm emotionally confused. Can I tell you the amount of times that my two sons will just be walking through the house and just stop and say, Dad, are you emotionally confused? Stupid. We have those stories. We talk about the kids being born. We talk about their weights when they were born. Ethan was a big old boy. We talk about funny stuff that has happened along the way, trips and accomplishments. We've shared those stories and we learn to laugh a lot. Can I tell you that's exactly how they passed down the faith early on? You realize this, right? They didn't have the scriptures in the Old Testament. It was an oral tradition. They passed it down. They would gather around the campfires, and dads and grandpas and elders would sit around and talk about the time that Moses led the people out of slavery and God split the Red Sea. They would talk about the time that the nation was in the midst of a great famine and they thought everyone was going to die, but God in his sovereignty had sent Joseph off to Egypt. He had rose to a position of prominence, and God saved his people. They would tell story after story of God's faithfulness and his miraculous working, and they passed down the faith. You and I have to make faith moments that are remembered, where we pass down those stories of how God has worked in our lives. Remember the commandments of the Lord and how following those commandments God has blessed us. Remember the Lord your God and how he worked in that health situation, how he worked in that job situation, how he provided. Tell the stories of faith. Remember what you used to be, but God changed you and is changing you in his grace. Make those faith moments that stick. Can I be honest with you? I think part of the reason COVID came around is God's given us another opportunity to do this. All of a sudden, things came to a screeching halt, and we're all sitting at home looking at each other. And I'll tell you, I grieve because I think some of us let it go by, because it was an awesome opportunity for discipleship to come back to the home and for people to sit around and talk about the stories of faith again and how God has worked in our lives. Moments help us to remember what God has done. Let me give you a couple more stats. 10% of Christian teens have prayed at home with their family. Just 10%. 10% have had faith conversations at the house. That's Christian teens. 1 in 10. We don't just make family memories, we make faith moments in our families. That's how we create a legacy of faith. This couple years ago, well, no, it's been last year. It was last year. I did a family retreat for a church in Northeast Arkansas. We went out in the middle of nowhere, and I mean it was nowhere. Like I don't even know where I was, that kind of nowhere. They took families from the church out there to this primitive camp. No electricity at the camp, that kind of primitive. I didn't stay there, just being honest. But they wanted families to come together and make some memories and share the faith. And so they asked me to come in and talk about this a little bit. And so during a session one night, I asked the question, how many of you kids, there were several kids in the room, several parents, single parents, grandparents who were raising the kids, they were in the room. And I said, how many of you kids have heard your family share their faith? Share how they came to know Jesus Christ. Not one hand, not one person, not one kid could tell me how mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, adopted, whatever, foster, whatever, how they came to faith. So you know what I did? And I thought about doing it this morning. You're welcome. I had them turn towards each other, get knee to knee, and I said, we're just going to take the next 5 minutes. Mom, dad, guardian, whomever, I want you to share what your life was like before Jesus, how you came to know Jesus, and what Jesus has been to you since then. And we turned, and we started sharing, and I stepped back. And y'all, it was special. Listening to these parents, sharing with their kids their testimony. What if you died today and your kids didn't even know how you came to know Jesus? They would struggle writing your obituary. We can't have that. We must share the faith and pass down those meaningful moments that the God of the wonders has done in our lives. And so I'm going to encourage you, before this Father's Day is over, dads, man up. Tell your kids or your grandkids how you came to know Jesus. What your life was like before, what happened when you come to place your faith in him, and what Jesus has been to you since. It doesn't have to be this long thing. That can be 3 minutes. But share the story of your faith. Psalm 78 says, I will declare wise sayings. I will speak of mysteries past, things we have heard and known from our ancestors. We will not hide them from our children. We will tell a future generation the praiseworthy acts of the Lord, the might, the wondrous works that he has performed. Someone is discipling your family. Someone is speaking into your family. Whether it's TikTok and social media, whether it's news channels, someone is discipling your family. Whether it's friend circles, whether it's the things that they're immersed in, someone is discipling your kids. Let's step up. Let's be the faith disciplers in our homes. Let's break the chains. Let's break the cycles. So here's my encouragement to you. We're going to have an invitation. We're going to do it a little bit differently. Luke 2:52. I'm going to tell you how I've prayed for our kids over the last 24 years. Almost the same way. Luke 2:52, you know it. It's usually kind of told along with Christmas. Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and in favor with God and man. Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, favor with God, favor with man. Here's how I've prayed for my kids, and I would encourage you parents, young parents especially in the room, about to be parents. When you pray for your kids, I've done this. I pray for my kids mentally. Jesus grew in wisdom. That's mental, emotional, intellectual. Jesus grew in wisdom. Pray for them mentally. Jesus grew in stature. That's physical. I've prayed for my kids physically. Their health. This one we probably nail the most. Their health, their safety, their physicality, those kinds of things. Jesus grew in favor with man and with God. I pray for them spiritually, that they would come to know Jesus, that they would grow in God's favor, that they would grow spiritually. And then with man, I pray for them relationally, for their spouses, their future spouses, who they're going to be, what kind of friend they're going to be, what kind of relationships they're going to have moving forward, the circles of influence in their lives. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, relationally. That's how I've prayed for our kids over the years. And so if you'll bow your heads and close your eyes, I'm going to give you a chance on this Father's Day to pray for your kids, your grandkids, maybe the kids in your church that you have influence over. Maybe you're an aunt or an uncle. And I'm just going to give you a few minutes here. Would you pray for them? Mentally, physically, spiritually, and relationally. Pray for them mentally. God, protect their minds. Help them to discern truth. Give them wisdom, not the world's wisdom, your wisdom. Physically, God, keep them safe. Protect their health. Holy Spirit, may you find home in their bodies. Make them a vessel of your mission. Spiritually, please, God, save them. Show them who you are, how good it is to know you. Would they come to know you as Savior and Lord? Would they grow in their faith? Oh God, open their eyes to see the wonders and awe of who you are. relationally. Give them circles of influence with hearts that are turned towards you. Help them to be part of a church, a congregation that believes in you and your word. Give them a spouse that knows you, loves you, trusts your word. God, we need to grow in our faithfulness. Thank you that your mercy looks past our idolatry and our adultery. Lord, help us to be on mission in our families. On this Father's Day, help us to be on mission. Thank you for your grace when we're not, that your love supersedes our brokenness. Help us to make faith moments evident and real in front of our children. No more facade, no more superficial, no more fake. Our faith is real. It permeates every aspect of our lives. And we talk about that, and we share about that, and we enjoy that together in our homes. On this Father's Day, would you raise up moms and dads across this room, grandpas and grandmas, uncles and aunts, spiritual champions, to pass down the faith to the next generation. In Jesus' name we pray. We're going to